Okay. So, this is probably going to be a short podcast. Joe Biden. MAGA extremists are telling women what healthcare choices they are allowed to make. No, not really. They're telling you what books should be in your kids' schools. Yes, not porn. This is on Joe Biden, but as you can see, it's between me and someone else talking. This hurt my brain so much. No, it's not that MAGA extremists are telling women, or just MAGA extremists. That's damn, dude. That's dumb. People are telling women what healthcare choices they're allowed to make, and that is killing an unborn, killing a child. Now, the biggest problem is that none of them want to admit that it is a human being or a person or living. But why? Why does it matter if it's a person or not? The only thing that's affected is your conscience. For me, it doesn't matter. They're humans. They're people. And I think you should be able to abort them up to 1 year after they are born. Because a lot of shit happens, you might just decide not to. At this point, we need population reduction, and they will snuff themselves out eventually. So it's a win-win. They're telling you what books should be in your kids' schools. No. To a certain extent, yes. It's mainly pornographic books or things that tell you to feel shitty about yourselves. And that's putting it lightly. And if you don't like it, tough luck. They're going after your right to vote too. No one's going after your right to vote. Joe Biden, you're just lying. That's not who we are. You're right. That isn't who we are. That's not America. So nothing you said is right. Like, okay, for books, Hustler, pornographic magazines, should they be in children's schools? No. And no book has been banned. You can still bring the book yourself. The only thing is it will not be in your library. You can still bring your books. However you want, you can still buy the books. So this is nonsense. It's just giving it. And then Emery King. The healthcare choices in question aren't about women at all when they result in the termination of an unborn child. It's not entirely true. The healthcare choices is about women and the unborn child. It's about both of them. The difference between Democrats and Republicans is life. And that really shouldn't be an option. If you're okay, you should be okay, if you're okay with abortion, to kill your child. That should just not happen. Public school belong to we the people. We pay for them. We absolutely have a say in what books. Yes, and this is right to our children, especially when they are about oral and anal sex. And there have been books that are given to children in children's libraries that actually show oral and anal sex. That's not good. Yeah? Did I do this? I'm going to. Oh, yeah, you're good. Actually, how much is that giving me? Oh, you're not even really registering. You need an ID to buy cigarettes, alcohol, and even certain cold medicines in this country. And porn. I don't know why that's Okay. The only people on the planet that are against voting integrity are those who wish to cheat elections. And yeah, I don't think that's entirely true because no, it's not true because a lot of the people who are against voting integrity are people that are worried that people will be disenfranchised. And that is a legitimate concern. But it's not really legitimate because that's not what's happening. You're not disenfranchised because you don't have an ID. And then the other 10 ways you can get them. There's a lot of ways you can get it. I guess you just. And it doesn't cost much. Most states, I'd have to look into this, but I won't because it's not part of the section. Give them for free if you are on like food stamps, snaps, and other government programs. Or if you can prove you don't make money, you can get them for free. And it's really racist to tell people that they are too dumb, stupid, or poor to get an ID. That they don't know where the DMV is, especially telling that to blacks, Mexicans, Spanish, Asians. That is horrible, and that will disenfranchise them. Oh, okay. Yeah, we were just going back to the American teen bitch movie with the BoJack cat. Hmm. They very much care about women. This is sarcasm. The woman whose body is being used against her will does not disappear, nor does her right to own organs disappear just because of a fetus. But then we're talking about two people. You don't have the right to kill someone just because you're unhappy. Now, the woman whose body is being used against her will, if you're talking about rape and other things, those are exempt. I think in all of the cases in America, there are exemptions. Yeah, her body doesn't disappear, nor her rights. But then we have to talk about other people's rights, like the baby. Jim. But the rights of the unborn baby, not fetus, disappear. Yeah, yeah. It's mother's rights versus human rights. And that's the basic thing. But it's more, is it a life versus you shouldn't be shamed? Or you shouldn't feel bad because it's only cells. Then Teen Bitch movie again. Do you honestly believe a fetus is a person? Yes. 100%. Now, here comes the long list of dumbfuckery that I am about to go through. BP Godino. Godino. I'm just probably going to call him BP or Godino. I don't know what I'm going to call him. Fucking Mario NFT face. Literally, what is it? I can't remember. It was an NFT. Yeah, okay. Love the new NFT profile pic. So, Mario. Okay, Mario. How do you define a person? Me. Person, a living human. Then I go on to tell him what those mean. Living, in active function or use. Human, a member of the primate genus Homo, especially a member of the species Homo sapiens. So, the cells from conception are in active function or use. Their function is to grow. That's literally it, in active function or use. Trees are living, mold is living, bacteria are living, humans, animals, everything is living besides maybe rocks. And maybe the air, but I'm not so. Yeah, air is not living. It just. Okay. By your definition, an unborn baby is not a human. And this dude goes by so much errors in his spelling. By your definition, an unborn baby is not a human, lol. No, it is. By my definition, a how do I define a person? A person is a living human. But it's living. By your definition, an unborn baby is not a human. Yes, it literally is. While it is unborn, it is scientifically not classified as a separate organism. Your definition literally proves me right. That's not how this works. You don't cite, you don't have a citation, and your definition literally proves me right. How? What did you say? How do I define a person? It proves me right. But you didn't give me anything. You didn't make a statement. What how is that proving you right? No. While it is unborn, it is scientifically not classified as a separate organism. Yes, it is. All science says that. And at this point, I don't care if my art shit gets like, okay. Defining a person can depend on the context. A person is a human being, typically considered to have consciousness and the ability to reason, communicate, experience emotions, and interact with other individuals. You know, that's fine, but that's not what I wrote, but this is still technically yes. But this has nothing to do with what anyone has said. I don't know why you're even bringing up a separate organism. That has nothing to do with the conversation. But I will go with it. It it literally is a person. It is an active function. Its function is to grow and gain nutrients. It is a Homo sapien. Literally my definition. It is scientifically a separate organism. It has separate genes than the mother. Yes, fetuses, and this is from ChatGPT, which uses a lot of doctors. The internet's worth of doctors. Now, it is left wing and biased, which is really good when I need to do something like this. Yes, fetuses are separate organisms from the mother. From the moment of conception, the fetus is genetically distinct from the mother and has its own unique set of DNA. The fetus is dependent on the mother for sustenance and oxygen, which it receives through the placenta and umbilical cord, but it is a distinct and developing organism. For it to be a separate organism, it would have to be like a clone. It would have to be part of the mother. But this thing, the fetus, has its own unique set of DNA. Half of the father's side, half of the mother's side. It's not that hard to fucking say. That's right. Do we really need science quotation saying it from? Well, we'll go into that. During pregnancy, the mother and the fetus share a close physiological relationship, and the health and well-being of the mother can have an impact on the development of the fetus. However, the mother's body does not control the development of the fetus in the same way that it controls the functions of its own organs. The fetus has its own genetic code and is capable of independent growth and development. And that's completely true. There's nothing wrong in here. It is capable of independent growth. All it needs is nutrients. It independently grows and it independently develops. It's only taking oxygen and nutrients. The mom doesn't tell it how fast to go, how long to go, how much nutrients. The mother has no control over the growth and development besides her nutrition. If you don't eat a lot while you're pregnant, that could, one, kill the baby. Two, it could harm the baby, make it underweight, give it health problems. So yes, the fetus is its own thing. And I don't know why that's so hard to understand. This has just straight up lies in it from Mario. This has just straight up lies in it. The last line, apart from the DNA part, is just not true. But it is. This is science. We know this is true. Mother, my wife was pregnant twice. She had no control over it. It is independent. It has independent growth and development. My wife did not control it at all. All she could control about the baby was its nutrients. She can't control the oxygen. Besides breathing, she'd die. Like, I don't know why you're saying it's not true. And where is your source? If you remove the fetus from the womb, it dies. Not all the time. Not 100%. And also, so do newborn babies. You can't. If you do nothing with a newborn, it will die. And sometimes you have to get it to cry for it to breathe right. Oh my God. Just because it has different DNA, it doesn't mean it's a separate organism. Yes, that's exactly what it means. I don't know what you're talking about, man. It is a separate organism because it's a different DNA. Otherwise, it would have the exact same DNA as its mother, which it doesn't. It has half from the father, half from the mother. This is a take from someone who knows nothing about biology. Dude, the small time I've had with you thus far, you don't know biology. And from the question from before, why is it that Democrats, assuming he's Democrat, why do people think that it would be better just to call it a fetus instead of something that's living? The only reason you would do that, the only reason it could be, is because you just want abortions. That's it. Okay, me. No, it doesn't. Saying this just has just straight up lies in it. No, it doesn't. The last line, apart from the DNA part, is just not true. It's completely true. If you remove the fetus from the womb, it dies, just like a newborn. And at certain times. Just because it has different DNA doesn't mean it's a separate organism. That's not relevant to whether it is a person or a separate organism. Because this whole thing was person, not separate organism. That has nothing to do with anything. But I will go with it. Okay. From a biological standpoint, a fetus is considered a separate organism from the mother. It is a genetically distinct entity with its own unique set of DNA. However, the fetus is dependent on the mother for survival during pregnancy. It relies on the mother's body for oxygen and nutrients, which are delivered to the placenta and the umbilical cord. While it's true that a fetus cannot survive outside the womb before a certain stage of development, like I said, it is still considered a separate organism with its own distinct biological identity. And that is 100% true. The fact that fetus is reliant on the mother's body for survival does not negate the fact that it is a genetically distinct and developing organism. And there's no lies here. This And it doesn't matter. You can call it a parasite. That's fine. But parasites are still separate organisms and living. Parasitism has nothing to do with personhood or life or a separate organism. It is genetically distinct and developing organism. Like there's nothing wrong with that. It is genetically distinct from the mother. It has half the father, half the mother. We should know this from biology. Dude. Mario. Have you ever heard of ferns? Yeah. They have a complete, complex life cycle in which they are haploid and diploid, the same organism. This is high school biology. The DNA argument, complete and total bullshit. No. So if you know nothing about biology, stop talking. You don't know anything about biology. And I'll show you. I thought I asked uh, Google. I also asked ChatGPT. And they have nothing to do with each other. Okay, me. Okay, humans are not ferns or fungi. This is high school biology, so if you know nothing about biology, stop talking. I just used his words against him. However, in the case of human reproduction, the situation is different. The fertilized egg or zygote that forms after the sperm and egg unite is diploid and contains a unique set of genetic information that distinguishes it from the mother's body. And he's even using the same haploid and diploids. As the zygote develops into an embryo and then a fetus, it grows and develops independently of the mother's body, although it is dependent on the mother for nourishment and oxygen. So it grows and develops as independently. I already talked about this. A woman cannot control the rate at which it is nourished or oxygenated. So a woman cannot control how it grows besides nourishment. And she's not deciding anything. She eats, it consumes. You can't just say grow an arm and it grows an arm. It is completely distinct and is not in it has nothing to do with the woman besides nourishment and oxygen. So while it's true that some organisms have complex life cycles that involve multiple ploidy levels, this is not the case for human reproduction. The fetus is considered a separate organism from the mother because it possesses its own unique genetic information and develops independently, albeit with the support of the mother's body. And why did you bring up ferns? Humans are not ferns. Humans are not ferns or fungi. They're completely different things. That's literally like a human to plant ratio. It's a false equivalency. Mario, this quote is not an argument. Yes, it is. It is an argument. The whole thing is an argument. What are you talking about? It literally says you're wrong. Doctors say that you are wrong. The quote is not an argument. Fuck off. Why is it that ferns can have multiple DNA sets and be considered the same organism, but humans can't? What makes us an exception? I will explain that because I didn't fully know, but I searched it up. I, yes, it is because humans aren't ferns or fungi. So what makes us an exception? An exception? We're humans. That's that's literally it. Why do male seahorses get pregnant and humans don't? Because we're not seahorses. But let's have a look at this. This is a good question. The reason why ferns and other organisms with complex life cycles can have multiple haploidy levels and still be considered the same organism is because they undergo a process called alternation of generations. This means that they alternate between haploid and diploid phases in their life cycle, and both phases contribute to the formation of the multicellular organism. So it just replicates itself, and that it just goes through haploid and diploid phases. In contrast, in human reproduction, the sperm and egg are haploid cells that fuse to form a diploid zygote. This zygote contains a unique set of genetic information that distinguishes it from the mother's body, and it develops into an embryo and then a fetus that grows and develops independently, albeit with the support of the mother's body. We just grow differently. Literally, that's it. Why can ferns and fungi do it? Because they're not human. So while it's true that some organisms can have multiple haploidy levels and still be considered the same organism due to alteration of generations, this is not the case for human reproduction. The unique genetic identity of the fetus and its independent growth and development, albeit with maternal support, distinguish it as a separate organism from the mother. Our genetics is what causes us to be different. One extra chromosome will fuck you up. Missing one will fuck you up. Doubling one will fuck you up. Jesus Christ. Okay. Okay, but what makes them different? Genes. That we have different genes. Why don't their ploidy levels matter, but ours do? The different modes of reproduction and life cycles of organisms determine whether multiple haploidy levels are relevant to defining the organism. So, how we reproduce and how we live determine whether it's relevant. Mushrooms just replicate. The, the reason why ploidy levels matter in some organisms but not in others has to do with their respective life cycles and modes of reproduction. In the case of ferns and other plants, they undergo alternation of generations, which involves the alternation between haploid and diploid phases in their life cycle. In these organisms, the haploid and diploid phases contribute to the formation of the multicellular organism, and thus they can be considered the same organism despite having multiple ploidy levels. Now, define haploid. Haploid, having a single set of unpaired chromosomes, as in a germ cell such as an egg or sperm, or in a moss plant or drone bee. Or having half the number of chromosomes normally present in somatic cells, having only one chromosome of each type and therefore having only one complete set of genes, contrasted with diploid and polyploid. I'm going to look at polyploid also, but this one, haploid, diploid. Diploid. Diploid, double or twofold, having a pair of each type of chromosomes so that the basic chromosome number is doubled. Having a number of chromosomes corresponding to two copies of each chromosome, having double the basic number of chromosomes as seen as a haploid cell, contrasted to haploid and polyploid. So one chromosome is a haploid, 2 dip, and I'm guessing poly is more than 2. Polyploid. Having one or more extra sets of chromosomes. Oh, okay. Polyploid is a condition in which the cells of an organism have more than one pair of chromosomes. Most species whose cells have nuclei are diploid mean they have 2 complete sets of chromosomes, one from each of the 2 parents. Okay. Oh, man. It just has to do with how they reproduce and how their life cycles go. Because a normal life cycle for a fetus goes to life. In the case of ferns and other plants, in these organisms, the haploid and diploid phases contribute to the formation of the multicellular organism, and thus they can be considered the same organism despite having multiple ploidy levels. In contrast, humans and most other animals undergo a type of reproduction called sexual reproduction, where the sperm and the egg fuse to form a diploid zygote. This zygote contains a unique set of genetic information that distinguishes it from the mother's body, and it develops into an embryo and then a fetus that grows and develops independently. Again, we've been through this. It develops independently, as in the mother does not control how it grows. She can only introduce variables in which the fetus has to take care of. The unique genetic identity of the fetus and its independent growth and development, albeit with maternal support, distinguish it as a separate organism from the mother, despite the fact that it is dependent. Okay. Said that twice. So, in summary, the different modes of reproduction and life cycles of organisms determine whether multiple ploidy levels are relevant to defining the organism. The different modes of reproduction and life cycles of organisms determine whether multiple ploidy levels are relevant to defining the organism. In the case of ferns and other organisms that undergo alteration of generations, multiple ploidy levels are part of their normal life cycle, and thus do not affect their identity as a single organism. In contrast, in animals such as humans, the formation of a distinct zygote with a unique genetic identity marks the beginning of a new organism with independent development. And then Mario says, this still says nothing. Except that I've been disproving you this whole time. And you still haven't proven anything yet. I have given you stuff. I have given you the source. This still says nothing. No. It says a lot. And it explains your question. This still says nothing. It just makes an arbitrary exception. The answer you are giving me is because yes. No. No. It, this is how science does it, dude. This whole ploidy discussion is useless anyway because you yourself have stuff like mitochondrial DNA. Why did you bring it up? You brought up the ploidy discussion. I have disproven it. And now you say it doesn't mean anything because we have mitochondrial DNA. Is mitochondria a different organism? No. But look, okay, this still says nothing. It explains exactly your question. It just makes an arbitrary exception. No, it doesn't. The whole ploidy discussion is useless. No, it explains how reproduction differs between humans, ferns, and fungi and how it relates to differing terms. And no, it can never live outside of its residing cell, but a fetus will. To answer your first question, the reason why ploidy levels matter in some organisms but not the others is not arbitrary or based on a because yes answer. It is based on the different modes of reproduction and life cycles of organisms, as explained earlier. Regarding your second question about mitochondrial DNA, mitochondria are organelles within a cell that contain their own DNA. However, mitochondria are not considered separate organisms because they cannot survive and reproduce independently outside of the cell they reside in, unlike fetuses, who can. Mitochondria are also passed down maternally, so they are not a unique genetic identity like the diploid zygote that forms during sexual reproduction. These are two different things. So no, no. I hope this helps clarify between ploidy levels and mitochondrial DNA and the concept of defining an organism. Then the next one. Mitochondria are not considered different organisms, but rather organelles with eukaryotic cells. They are believed to have originated from free-living bacteria that were engulfed. Over time, the bacteria and the host cell developed a symbiotic relationship in which the bacteria provided energy to the host cell in the form of ATP. Mitochondria have their own DNA and ribosomes and can replicate independently of the cell's own DNA replication, but they are still considered part of the cell rather than a separate organism. I don't think this dude's reading any of this. A fetus is an unborn offspring of a mammal, specifically a developing mammalian organism from approximately the end of the 8th week after fertilization until birth. Unlike mitochondria, a fetus is a complete organism with its own unique set of DNA and distinct organs and systems. So, you aren't even using your term right. I didn't even recognize, I didn't think about this until now. A fetus is an unborn offspring of a mammal, end of the 8th week after fertilization. So we aren't technically using the right word, but I don't think that actually matters. To me, a fetus is just conception to birth. And that looks like how he's framing it too. Unlike Okay. Unlike mitochondria, a fetus is a complete organism with its own unique set of DNA and distinct organs and systems, including a heart, lungs, brain, digestive system, and so on. A fetus is the result of the fusion of a sperm and an egg, and it develops through the process of cell division and differentiation within the mother's uterus. While the fetus is dependent on the mother for nutrients, it's a separate organism with its own genetic identity and potential for life outside the womb. Mitochondria do not have that opportunity to have its own genetic identity and potential for life outside of the womb or the cell. If it goes out of the cell, it dies. In contrast, mitochondria are organelles. God damn, I can't read tonight. In contrast, mitochondria are organelles within cells that have their own DNA but are not complete organisms with the capacity for independent life. They cannot have a life outside of their cell. Can't even remember. I don't know what he's. If you take. Oh, will a fetus live outside the womb? That's irrelevant. If you take. He says that a fetus can live outside of the womb. Well, yes, it can. And without interrupting, it will. If you kill it, it dies. If you take a fetus outside the womb, it will die. Exactly with newborns. Yeah. With children. Like, that's why it's in there in the first place. Yeah, but that's irrelevant to anything that anyone's talking about. That when it can live on its own, then it is a different organism. So it born, so it can't be aborted anymore. No, that's not how this works. We've been through this. Just because you can't accept it doesn't mean it's not true. But until then, it's not its own organism. Yes, it is. You know, watch me spell orgasm accidentally. Organism. An individual form of life. Such as a bacterium, protist, fungus, plant, or animal, composed of a single cell or a complex of cells in which organelles or organs work together to carry out the various processes of life. A system regarded as analogous in its structure or functions to a living body. Organic structure. Dude. What? And I don't know if anyone knows, but humans are animals. An individual form of life, as little as a cell. And you might be thinking, oh, what about sperm? They do not carry out the various processes of life unless it is infused with an egg. So a sperm by itself, let me see, is sperm actually I can't remember what I'm going to do now. Is sperm life? There we go. Is sperm life? Oh, okay, biology. I would say yes, but that doesn't matter because. Okay. Hinduism? Okay. Our sperms can. Question of what is living is nothing but a matter of definition. Uh, Reproduction is not only cell division. Following. I don't fucking care. I would say it is, and it doesn't matter. Is sperm life? Yes. But that doesn't mean anything. You aren't killing a bunch of possible people every time you ejaculate. Oh, but what about the Bible? I don't care about the Bible. When it can live on its own, then it's a different organism. That is not true. The definition of organism kind of proves you wrong. But let's assume it doesn't. Yes, it eventually will. That is irrelevant to whether it's its own organism. You're wrong on living by its own. It's a different organism regardless of perceived parasitism. At conception, it is its own organism, scientifically proven. You are correct that a fetus requires the support of the mother's uterus to survive and develop until it reaches a stage where it can live independently outside of the womb. During the early stages of pregnancy, the fetus is not fully developed and is dependent on the mother for oxygen, nutrients, and protection. However, while the fetus is dependent on the mother for survival, it is still considered a separate organism from the mother, with its own unique DNA and potential for life. And that's what it keeps coming down to, with its own unique DNA and potential for life outside the womb. Bro, this says Mario. Bro, this says nothing again. Yes, it does. This just says you are right, but it's still a different organism without providing any proof. Um, no. And sometimes I have to reread it again. It doesn't say that you are right, but it's still a different organism without providing any proof. It just that's literally how this is. This is basic biology, dude. The only thing the fetus needs the mother for in the womb is oxygen and nutrients. It independently grows. It does its own thing. The mother has literally no control over it. Bro, this is nothing again. This just the fetus is exactly like a mitochondria. No, it's not. Mitochondria don't do the life outside the womb thing. They don't live. It needs you to live. It has different DNA. Correct. But that's irrelevant. The mitochondria isn't a separate organism. And yet you're asking for proof and sources with never providing one. The mitochondria isn't a separate organism. You're right. But that doesn't mean anything. The fetus is not exactly like a mitochondria. And you're trying to say it is, so it's not a separate organism. But that's blatantly false. This says nothing wrong. You're right, but it's still a different organism. Wrong. It says it needs support, but that doesn't mean it isn't a different organism. And that's true. A fetus is not a mitochondria in any facet. It needs you to live. Correct and irrelevant. Correct, but a fetus is. The mitochondria isn't a separate organism. Correct, but a fetus is. I'm using ChatGPT, which uses the whole internet's doctor's opinions. And yet you've done nothing. You have provided no proof of anything that a fetus is exactly like a mitochondria. You have not provided any proof. ChatGPT is not a fucking source, my guy. Yes, it is. I can ask it what 2 plus 2 is, and it can tell me 4. It literally says right there that it doesn't take into account if something is true or not. No. It says, free research preview. ChatGPT may produce inaccurate information about people, places, or facts. And that's exactly what humans can do too. Oh, my opinion is worth as much to ChatGPT as a professional's. This makes no sense. Using ChatGPT for this is fucking retarded. No, it's not. It And yes, it is a source. It conglomerates information from all across the internet, has proven to be able to get PhDs, and it has. Yes, it literally says right, it doesn't take into account if something is true or not. It doesn't, though. I'll just give that to you. That's technically maybe kinda what they're kinda saying. Yes, just like doctors can and routinely do. Doctors kill a lot of patients. My opinion is worth as much to ChatGPT as a professional's. Haha, lol, no it doesn't. Your opinion, you've only used opinions. Well, you have provided no source, you have proven nothing but stating nuh-uh. And then I give him 5 sources. Public discourse, life news. You should be able to see that. Oh yeah, it's over here. Wait, did that change? Oh, no. A new study demonstrates that human embryos autonomously direct their own development from the very earliest moments of life, even when they are not in their mother's womb. Yeah. The truth is that science already has answered this question loud and clear. It's pretty simple. You take an egg from a female and a sperm cell from a male. The sperm penetrates the egg, and now you have one cell with the complete amount of genetic material needed for everything a human could ever want to do. This might not be enough to convince skeptics. Early on, it's just a clump of cells, is what people say. As scientists, my colleagues must concede that embryos are made up of living cells, but they don't accept the embryo as a living organism. And this still has nothing to do. I mean, I still don't know why you're doing separate organism. Is it living? Yes. Yeah, and it's a different organism. If the early embryo is just a clump of cells, then it can't justify abortion. Oh, then you can justify abortion. By this logic, it's not an autonomous being, and it's definitely not a human person yet. Yet, it's just a few cells growing in the mother's body, and so the mother can choose to get rid of those cells if she wants to. But when does a new cell become an autonomous organism? If the embryo is really just a clump of cells, then those cells must rely on external guidance in order to survive. If it's really just a clump of cells, then those cells have no control and no autonomy. A simple clump of unimportant, disorganized cells would be akin to some random collection of differentiated cells grown on a plastic plate. They can divide if you make them, but there isn't any internal structure or organization present. But we know that's wrong. If we define organismal autonomy to mean freedom from external control, it turns out that we can identify precisely when an embryo satisfies the definition of autonomy from the very beginning. A recent study published by Marta and Shabazi and colleagues from the UK demonstrates that this newly formed cell knows what to do post-conception, regardless of whether or not it receives signals from the host's uterus. So, at conception, it's already doing things on its own. Wait, let me go back. Recent study. Oh shit. Accept your cookies. God damn it. Okay, well, I'm gonna go to bed. This is just completely dumb. This is so misleading. You have stuff like it can survive outside the womb. Fuck off. Okay, I'm going to bed. My wife's calling me.